Today on the Barricade Guard Show, we're going to talk about superheroes.
Superheroes have captured our minds and our imaginations for as long as we can remember. And depending on what decade you grew up in, your favorites may vary. When superhero stories get it right, they inspire us to push past our perceived limitations, they model virtue while still reflecting our fallen human nature, and sometimes they even provide clear Christ-like examples. One thing that the best superheroes have in common is that they are willing to sacrifice themselves in order to protect those who aren't able to protect themselves. And while you might not be a billionaire or have Kryptonian relatives, being willing to sacrifice yourself for those entrusted to your care is an important part of the Barricade Guard mission and something we've been discussing in recent episodes. So with that in mind, I thought it would be fun to reflect on the good and the bad about some of the most popular superheroes, share with you my personal favorite, and then invite my kids to share their favorites as well. We'll kick things off with an American classic, The Man of Steel. This comic book character debuted way back in 1938 and has seen many screen adaptations throughout the years, with the most beloved still being the Christopher Reeve movies in the 1970s and 80s, back when his motto was still truth, justice, and the American way. Faster than a speeding bullet and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, his physical strength and Boy Scout persona was a winning combination. Granted, his relationship with Lois hasn't always been portrayed in an ideal Christian model of courtship and chastity, but at least it's been relatively tame compared to what generally passes for entertainment these days. And while Superman isn't my personal favorite, his ability to fly is definitely my favorite superhero power. Next up is the Caped Crusader. Inspired at a young age by the death of his parents, Bruce Wayne puts his family's wealth at the service of his super detective alter ego, Batman. Played by everyone from Michael Keaton to Val Kilmer and Christian Bale, Batman has seen his fair share of reboots. And one can only hope that purgatory will eventually burn out of our minds George Clooney's painful performance as the Guardian of Gotham. Part of what makes Batman unique and at least somewhat relatable is that his superpowers at least seem like they are based in reality. He's just a strong and determined guy with all of the money and toys a superhero could ever want. There's a part of each of us that feels like if we had enough time and money, we too could become the Batman. Unfortunately, Bruce Wayne still tries to uphold his playboy image and usually has at least one female interest in every plot. His crime-fighting methods are also somewhat questionable. While most adaptations portray Batman using only non-lethal means to subdue villains, he certainly doesn't shy away from his self-granted license to beat criminals to a pulp with his bare hands. How much of this is justified defense versus unjustified revenge is a question for a roundtable morality discussion. But let's just say that Batman's anger probably gets the best of his prudential judgment on at least a few occasions. Only a few short years after Superman, Captain America emerged on the scene to promote America as we entered World War II. And rather than getting his superpowers from another planet or from hard work and a big bank account, Steve Rogers was injected with super soldier serum, say that 10 times fast, that transformed him into something more than Batman could be with his natural limitations, although not quite as impenetrable as Superman. But what really elevated Captain America wasn't just his brute strength. It was his moral compass, his willingness to lead by example, and his ability to deliver potent inspiration at just the right moments, as captured in this famous quote, "I know who I am. I rescue the helpless. I raise up the hopeless. I don't measure people's lives. I save them." Of all the most well-known superheroes, Captain America is probably the most clean-cut and Christ-like. And while part of me knows that Captain America probably should be my favorite, the watchful protector in me is inherently drawn to the Dark Knight. It might be in part because his abilities seem like the most attainable, at least in theory, or it might also be because Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight is my favorite non-religiously themed movie of all time. And I know, I admitted that Batman sometimes might get a bit carried away with his vengeance, but at least he'd never kill Superman. I mean, after all, their moms are both named Martha.
You're letting him kill Martha.
Why did you say that name?
As a dad, one of the things I enjoy the most is introducing my kids to my favorite superheroes, in age-appropriate doses, of course. The Incredibles is a great place to start for young kids, with Captain America, the First Avenger, being a great live-action option when they get a bit older. And while most of my kids aren't yet old enough for modern-day live-action superhero flicks, they are still familiar enough with the main characters to enjoy playing with the toys and dressing up for superhero training days at a local library. And as promised, I wanted to let each of them share their favorite superhero with you as well. Kids? Has anyone seen my kids?
Where are they?
First up is my oldest daughter, Maria.
My favorite superhero is Supergirl, and here are the 2 reasons why she's my favorite superhero. Number 1, as kids, we made this movie called Batman Saves the Day, and in it, I played Supergirl, and so I've always kind of had a connection with her. And then reason number 2 is she can fly, and obviously, flying is the best superpower.
Next up is my oldest son, John.
My favorite superhero is Superman. I was going to say Hulk, but Superman has Hulk's powers and more. And I even liked him so much that when I was 5, 6, or 7, I used to act out the scene from The Man of Steel, where he learns to fly, or as I called it, where Superman flies and falls and flies again. I used to run around the house and crash down into the living room and get back up and I pretend I was Superman.
Next up, my daughter, Claire.
My favorite superhero is Batgirl because she likes making inventions and I like making crafts. And then also because she uses the inventions that she builds to help fight crime.
And my son, Paul.
My favorite superhero is Flash because he could zoom everywhere.
Next up, my daughter, Nora.
I like Wonder Woman because he had that circle thing to get the bad guys.
Hey, Thomas. Who's your favorite superhero? Yeah, you like Batman too? Good boy. Speaking of superheroes and doing what we can to protect those who can't protect themselves, join me next time when I'll be discussing the defense of the unborn and sharing some of the ways that my family joins in this effort, including Marching for Life in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, coming up on Monday, October 16th. Who is your favorite superhero? Which superhero do you think best models Christian virtue? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might benefit from it as well. It really does help out me and the channel. Don't forget to follow the Barricade Guard on Facebook, X, and Instagram. The links are in the show notes below. And until next time,
Fortify your soul, body, and family. I'm the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs. It's complicated, but it's pretty awesome when you think about it.